Everything looked ordinary at first. Donald Trump was smiling. Ivanka Trump sat composed beside him, and the atmosphere felt like any other high-profile interview. But across the stage, Jasmine Crockett watched in silence, calm, focused, and carrying a revelation so explosive that by the end of the night, the entire room would be shaken. Most of all, Trump and Ivanka. The studio lights flared to life, bathing the set in warm gold. Cameras began rolling. The audience burst into applause. Then Donald Trump stepped onto the stage. He didn't simply walk in. He arrived with presence. With a casual wave and a confident grin, he soaked in the cheers like someone convinced the evening belonged to him. Every movement was captured by the cameras, each stride, each gesture. Trump straightened his suit jacket, lifted his chin, projected the kind of confidence that had carried him through rallies, speeches, and countless interviews. Right behind him came Ivanka. She moved with quiet elegance, polished, graceful, perfectly composed. Her smile looked effortless, though it had the precision of something practiced many times before. When she took her seat, crossing her legs neatly, she appeared completely in control. The image of calm confidence, the host leaned forward with a welcoming smile, eager to begin. "Mr. Trump," the host said warmly, "millions are watching. Tonight, you've faced challenge after challenge over the years. What keeps you going? Where does your strength come from?" It was exactly the kind of question Trump loved. He leaned toward the microphone, scanning the audience before answering. His voice came out strong, steady, and confident. "Family," he said. "My family keeps me going. They've always been my strength. Ivanka, Barron, all of them. The most loyal, the most incredible people anyone could ask for." The audience erupted into applause again. Trump's smile grew wider. He tapped the desk lightly, nodding as if to confirm what everyone had just heard. To him, it was obvious. That was the truth. Ivanka's expression barely changed. She glanced at her father, then toward the audience. Her smile stayed fixed, unreadable under the bright lights. To viewers watching at home, she looked like a proud daughter supporting her father. But in the studio, something about her stillness felt different, something the audience couldn't quite identify yet. And then there was Jasmine Crockett. She sat across the stage, quiet and patient. When the audience clapped, she didn't join them. When Trump praised his family, she didn't nod. Her eyes remained locked on him, sharp, steady, calculating like someone waiting for the exact moment to speak. Trump, meanwhile, seemed completely comfortable. He leaned back slightly, enjoying the rhythm of his own words. "When you're a leader," he continued, "you have to be strong. People look at your family to understand who you are. My family, my children, my loyalty, my values. That's what defines me." Applause swept through the studio once more. Trump gave a familiar wave of his hand, the kind that suggested the discussion was already settled, case closed, except it wasn't. In truth, the real conversation hadn't even started. Because while Trump spoke proudly about loyalty and family, Jasmine Crockett sat quietly with a very different confidence. She wasn't impressed by the speech. She wasn't moved by the applause. She knew something the rest of the room didn't, and she wasn't planning to keep it hidden much longer. The host glanced toward Jasmine for a moment, as well as sensing her silence, but allowed Trump to continue speaking. It was easy television. Trump talking proudly about family. The crowd responding with enthusiasm. Ivanka smiling like everything was perfectly in place. Yet the picture wasn't as flawless as it appeared. There were tiny cracks, subtle enough that most people would miss them. The way Ivanka briefly avoided eye contact when her father mentioned Barron's name, the way her fingers tightened slightly against the arm of her chair, and above all, the calm expression on Jasmine Crockett's face, an expression that seemed to say one thing clearly: "I know the truth." The energy in the studio began to shift. The applause faded more quickly. A quiet tension settled across the room. The audience couldn't explain it, but they could feel it. Something was building. Trump, of course, didn't notice. He was too absorbed in his own narrative, too focused on delivering the message he wanted everyone to hear. He didn't see Jasmine's steady gaze. He didn't notice Ivanka's tightened smile. and he certainly didn't realize that the excitement in the room had slowly transformed into anticipation. He kept speaking. "America needs strong families," Trump declared. "And nobody has a stronger family than mine." At that exact moment, Jasmine Crockett leaned forward just slightly. It was a small movement, but it changed everything. The audience had no idea what was coming. Trump had no idea what was coming. Ivanka perhaps did, which might explain why she remained so perfectly still. But Jasmine knew. And the revelation she was about to deliver would turn that proud speech into the very spark that ignited a fire no one in that studio would be able to contain. The applause was still fading when Jasmine Crockett finally leaned forward. Until that moment, Jasmine Crockett had remained completely silent. Her hands rested calmly on the table, her eyes fixed on Donald Trump without wavering. The host was just about to steer the conversation toward another topic when Jasmine finally spoke, her voice sliced cleanly through the room. "Mr. Trump," she said. She didn't raise her voice. Yet the firmness in her tone instantly commanded attention. "You talk a lot about strength, about honesty, about how your family defines who you are," she continued. "But the problem is, that story isn't nearly as honest as you make it sound." The studio fell silent. No one had expected something like that, especially not on live television. Trump blinked, caught off guard for a split second. But he recovered quickly. Leaning forward, he narrowed his eyes at her. "Excuse me?" he shot back. "My family is the strongest there is. Everyone knows it. Don't start with nonsense." But Jasmine didn't react. She didn't flinch. Didn't retreat. Her calmness was almost unsettling. "See? That's exactly what I mean," she replied evenly. "You present a picture to the public, the perfect father, the perfect children, the perfect loyalty." She paused. "But what if the truth looks very different? What if there's something real you've been hiding, something about your own family?" A murmur spread across the audience. People shifted in their seats, exchanging uncertain glances. Beside Trump, Ivanka Trump suddenly went still. Her smile remained in place, but her eyes flicked toward her father for the first time, then, quickly, back toward Jasmine. Trump forced out a laugh and waved his hand dismissively. "Ridiculous," he scoffed. "Fake. She's making things up. Total garbage." But Jasmine leaned forward slightly, her voice even steadier than before. "I'm not making anything up," she said. "And I wouldn't say it if I didn't have proof. The public deserves the truth, Mr. Trump. They deserve to know when a leader is hiding something this significant, especially when it involves the family image you present as your greatest strength." The host looked stunned, caught between keeping the show under control and letting the moment unfold. The cameras zoomed in on Trump's face. His jaw had tightened. The confident expression he had worn earlier was beginning to crack around the edges. And then Jasmine asked the question that froze the entire room. "Why don't you tell them who Barron's real mother is?" The silence that followed felt almost suffocating. Several people in the audience gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others leaned toward each other, whispering urgently. Chairs scraped softly against the floor as people shifted in shock. Trump slammed his hand down on the desk. "How dare you?" he shouted. "That is a disgusting lie. You have no idea what you're talking about. Shameful, absolutely shameful." But the louder Trump became, the calmer Jasmine looked. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't interrupt. She simply watched him, letting his anger fill the room. Then, softly but firmly, she spoke again. "It's not a lie. It's not gossip," she said. "It's fact. I have the documents to prove it." Another wave of gasps rolled through the audience, this time even louder. The host leaned forward, hands clasped tightly together, clearly unsure whether to step in or allow the ventilation to continue. Ivanka's hands gripped the armrests of her chair so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. She still hadn't spoken. She barely moved, but her silence said more than words could. Trump shook his head, attempting to laugh it off, though the sound felt hollow. "She's crazy," he muttered. "Completely crazy. Nobody believes that." But the room had shifted. The audience wasn't applauding anymore. No one was smiling. Every pair of eyes in the studio had turned toward Jasmine, and Jasmine knew it. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to match Trump's anger. Her power was in her composure, the quiet certainty behind every word. "The truth isn't always comfortable, Mr. Trump," she said, her voice cutting cleanly through the tension. "But when someone builds power on a false image, when the truth is hidden behind that image, people deserve to know." She paused. "And tonight," she finished, "they will." Cameras captured every detail. Trump's flushed face, Ivanka's frozen stare, Jasmine's steady calm. The studio no longer felt like a television set. It felt like a courtroom. And Jasmine Crockett had just presented the first piece of her case. The suspense in the air was unbearable. Everyone could sense that something enormous was about to be revealed. The only question left was what Jasmine would expose next, just moments earlier. The room had been filled with applause for Trump's confident talk about family. Now the atmosphere had completely changed. The tension was so thick it felt almost tangible. Trump leaned forward again, his face burning with anger, his fists striking the desk once more. "This is outrageous," he snapped. "You think you can sit there and attack my family on live television? You're a disgrace, Jasmine. A disgrace." The words from Donald Trump echoed across the studio like thunder. But this time the reaction was different. There was no applause, no cheering. The audience simply watched. Some people leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide with disbelief. Others covered their mouths, whispering quickly to the person beside them. The excitement that had filled the room earlier had turned into something else, entirely an easy fascination. Across the desk, Jasmine Crockett remained perfectly still, her composure cut through Trump's anger like ice. She tilted her head slightly, observing him with quiet patience, as if studying an outburst rather than reacting to it. Then she spoke. Her voice soft but unmistakably firm. "The louder you shout," she said, "the clearer it becomes that you don't want this truth to come out." The sentence hit the room like a hammer. A ripple of gasps spread through the audience. Trump shifted in his seat, glancing around the studio as if suddenly realizing the crowd was no longer on his side. That's when Ivanka Trump finally moved. Her voice, usually calm and controlled, carried a noticeable tremor. "This is nonsense," she said sharply. "Absolute nonsense. My father has always been honest about our family." She leaned toward Jasmine, her eyes burning with frustration. "How dare you suggest something so vile? You're doing this to embarrass us. You don't care about the truth. You just want attention." But Jasmine didn't react. She kept her tone measured, deliberate, like someone delivering careful, precise words. "No, Ivanka," she replied calmly. "This isn't about embarrassing anyone. It's about accountability." She folded her hands on the table. "When a leader hides something significant, something that could change how people see him, the public deserves to know. This isn't about me." Trump suddenly cut in, pointing a finger toward her. "You're lying," he snapped. "You're trying to destroy my family. You think you can come in here with fake documents and smear us? It won't work. Nobody believes you." But the room told a very different story. The audience wasn't booing Jasmine, and they certainly weren't applauding Trump. They were silent, waiting, watching, hungry to see what Jasmine would say next. Ivanka tried again, her voice sharper now, the polished smile completely gone. "You don't understand the damage you're causing," she said. "Families deserve privacy. Children deserve protection. Dragging Barron into this is disgusting." For the first time, Jasmine's expression softened. She nodded slowly, acknowledging Ivanka's words before answering. "You're right," she said quietly. "Children do deserve protection." She paused. "But this isn't about Barron. It's about the lies surrounding him." Her voice grew firmer. "When a child's story is used as a shield to protect a politician's image, that's when the truth matters most." Another wave of murmurs swept through the audience, louder this time. A few people even began clapping. Softly, not in celebration, but in recognition of the calm confidence she maintained under pressure. Trump slammed his hand against the desk again, his voice trembling with anger. "You think people care about this?" he demanded. "They don't. They care about strength, leadership. Nobody cares about your fake drama." Jasmine leaned back slightly in her chair. Her calmness stood in sharp contrast to his fury. She looked straight into his eyes and asked one simple question. "If nobody cares, then why are you so afraid?" The room exploded with shocked gasps. Even the host couldn't hide the look of disbelief spreading across his face. For a moment, Trump froze. His mouth opened as if to respond, but no words came out. The quick, confident comebacks he was known for seemed to vanish. Beside him, Ivanka had gone pale. She reached out and placed a hand on her father's arm, trying to steady him, but her hand trembled slightly as it touched him. She could feel what was coming next. Across the desk, Jasmine slowly turned toward the audience. Her calm voice carried clearly through the studio. "The truth is uncomfortable," she said. "It shakes the ground beneath powerful people." She paused. "But the truth is also simple." Her gaze returned to Trump, and tonight everyone watching deserves to hear it. The audience held its breath. Cameras zoomed closer. The host leaned forward in his chair. Trump gripped the edge of the desk so tightly his knuckles turned white. Ivanka sat frozen, her eyes locked on Jasmine, silently pleading for her not to go any further, but it was already too late. Jasmine Crockett now had the room, she had the moment, and she had the power, and she was only seconds away from revealing the evidence that would shatter everything. The studio fell into a deep, electric silence, not the kind that comes from boredom, but the kind that makes your skin prickle with anticipation. Everyone in the room felt it, the audience, the host, the cameras, even. Donald Trump and Ivanka Trump seemed to pause for a brief moment, unsure of what Jasmine Crockett would do next. Then Jasmine moved, slowly, deliberately. She reached beneath the desk. When her hand came back up, it held a thick manila folder. She placed it carefully on the table in front of her, almost as if the folder itself carried more weight than anything Trump had said all night. The host leaned forward, eyes widening. "Those documents?" he asked quietly. Jasmine didn't answer him. Her gaze remained fixed on Trump and Ivanka. "You accuse me of lying," she said calmly. "You accuse me of inventing stories?" Her fingers rested lightly on the folder. "But I don't make accusations without evidence. And right here in my hands is proof." Trump immediately cut in, his voice booming across the stage. "Fake," he barked. "It's all fake. Don't believe a word she says. This is made up another witch hunt, another disgusting smear." But his shouting only made Jasmine's stillness seem stronger. She opened the folder. The faint rustle of paper sliding against paper sounded almost louder than Trump's voice. The audience leaned forward in their seats, trying to see Jasmine. Lifted a stack of documents and held them up so the cameras could capture them clearly. "These are not rumors," she said. "They're not opinions." She turned one page slowly. "These are documented records, legal filings, medical records, DNA reports." Her voice remained steady, all pointing toward one truth that has been hidden for years. Trump slammed his hand down on the desk again. "Lies," he shouted. "Those are doctored. Anyone can fake documents, now fake signatures, fake DNA. Reports, Photoshop. This is garbage." Jasmine didn't even react. Instead, she turned toward the main camera so viewers at home could hear every word. "These documents have been verified," she said. "They've been cross-checked, signed, and notarized." She paused. "This isn't gossip. It's documented evidence." The audience held its breath. "And according to these records," Jasmine continued, "the story that has been presented to the public about this family is not the full truth." Gasps rippled across the room. Some people in the audience clutched their mouths. Others leaned toward each other, whispering in disbelief. Trump pushed back from the desk, rising halfway to his feet. "How dare you?" he shouted, pointing directly at Jasmine. "This is an attack on my family, on my children. You should be ashamed of yourself." He turned toward the production crew. "Shut her mic off."
Act!
"Shut it off right now." But the microphone stayed on. The cameras kept rolling. Ivanka sat frozen. Beside him, her face had gone pale. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but no words came. Her eyes flickered down toward the folder, then back to Jasmine. For a moment, it looked as if she might challenge the claim, but something stopped her: the weight of the documents. Sitting on the table, the host tried to regain control of the moment. "Miss Crockett," he said cautiously, "that's an extraordinary claim." Jasmine turned toward him. "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence," she replied. She lightly tapped the folder. "And tonight I brought it." She looked back at Trump. "These records outline timelines, medical details, legal signatures." Her voice carried across the stunned studio. "They suggest that the story Mr. Trump has told the public about his family isn't the whole story, and people deserve to know that." Another wave of gasps rolled through the audience. A few people even began clapping softly, not out of celebration, but from sheer disbelief that someone had confronted Trump this directly. Trump's hands trembled with anger. "This is illegal," he shouted. "No. You'll pay for this. You and anyone spreading these lies will regret it." But Jasmine didn't even look at him anymore. Instead, she faced the cameras directly. "This isn't about destroying anyone," she said calmly. "It's about truth." She paused, letting the words settle. "Leaders cannot ask the public for trust while hiding their deepest secrets. Accountability means the truth matters even when it's uncomfortable." The studio had erupted into chaos. Trump shouting Ivanka silent, the host overwhelmed, the audience buzzing like a storm ready to break. Yet through all of it, Jasmine remained perfectly calm, documents still in her hands, her message hanging heavily. In the air, the truth, whatever it was no longer whispered. It was now being debated live, in front of the entire world, and there was no way to put it back in the box. The studio had turned into a storm. Trump's voice thundered across the stage again, demanding that the cameras be shut off. Ivanka sat frozen, her silence louder than any of Trump's shouts. The host stumbled over his words, attempting to regain control, but it was clear the night no longer belonged to him. It belonged to Jasmine Crockett. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The folder in her hands carried more authority than any argument could. The audience felt it. The cameras captured it. Viewers at home felt it. The weight of truth pressed down like a hammer. Amid the chaos, Jasmine leaned into her microphone. Her tone was calm, deliberate, yet every word landed like a strike. "This isn't about humiliating a family. This isn't about private drama. This is about accountability. Because when leaders lie about their most personal truths, they demonstrate they're capable of lying about anything. And if they can manipulate their own story, how can the public trust them with the nation's story?" The words sliced through the shouting like a knife. Trump slammed his fist on the desk again, but fewer people were listening. The audience had shifted now, hanging on every syllable Jasmine spoke. She lifted another page from the folder, tapping it lightly. "These documents show what has been hidden. But beyond the secret itself, it's the act of hiding that matters. Concealment is power. By controlling the narrative, leaders shield themselves from scrutiny. They protect their image, their wealth, their influence, and the longer a lie stands, the stronger it grows. That is why exposure matters." The host stopped trying to interject. His pale, stunned expression mirrored the audience's collective realization. There was no stopping this now. Jasmine had seized control of the night, turning to the cameras. She spoke directly to millions watching at home. Ask yourselves, why do politicians bury these truths? Why erase family ties, rewrite personal histories, and silence those who question them? The answer is simple. They fear scandal. They fear losing control. They fear the public discovering that the image they sell is not the life they live. For a moment, the studio held its breath. Even Trump, red-faced and trembling, had run out of words. His anger simmered, but he couldn't outshout the weight of Jasmine's message. "Now," she continued, her voice rising just enough to pierce, The tension. When secrets like this are hidden, it's not just about family privacy. It can affect legal matters, inheritance, custody, taxes. It can influence political decisions. It can even be leveraged behind closed doors. Every time a truth is buried, public trust erodes. That is why exposure matters, not for gossip, not for headlines, but for accountability. A ripple of murmurs passed through the audience. This time, some soft claps followed, not in celebration, but in acknowledgement of Jasmine's composure and courage. She set the papers back into the folder and folded her hands atop it. "I know the risks," she said quietly. "Speaking out against powerful people comes with threats, legal battles, and attempts to ruin your reputation. But truth outweighs fear. If we are ever to demand honesty from those who lead us, we cannot allow them to bury lies beneath polished speeches and perfect smiles." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle across the room. Then, locking eyes with the camera, "One last time?" she asked. "So, I leave you with this question. If a leader hides something as personal, as monumental as this, what else are they hiding from you?" The audience held its breath. No applause, no gasps. Only the heavy stillness of people realizing they had just heard something that could not be unheard. Trump stood glaring, fists clenched, a storm of fury written across his face. Ivanka's gaze stayed fixed on the floor, her stillness more telling than any denial could be. The host, finally at a loss for words, whispered, "We will be right back." But the cameras had already captured what mattered. The lie was exposed. The proof lay on the table. And Jasmine Crockett's question now belonged to the viewers at home, a question that would echo long after the lights went dark.